Okay, second video. Sorry, I think my previous video was too long. I'm gonna keep this one a lot shorter. So, trapeze. Trapeze is the next basic in side style. So, this is how yo tricks or any other tutorials explain it. They say, put your finger out, let the yo-yo swing around, and let the yo-yo land back on the string. Try to keep the finger as close to this side as possible, which is definitely true, because we explained this earlier, but just so you have it on record, if the yo-yo is further away from your finger, a degree of difference makes so much difference where you have a very, very small margin for error to land on the yo-yo. Whereas if you have the yo-yo close to your finger, then you have a lot more margin for error before it leaves the landing zone. So you want it as close to your finger as possible. And to be honest, like, okay, let me try and pinch the string. So literally, I'm not guiding the yo-yo on. If you're trying to land the yo-yo onto the string, it becomes a lot more difficult, especially when you're first starting and you're not used to hop tricks. You're trying to gauge it. It becomes more of a hand-eye coordination. It's like a physical activity where you're literally trying to gauge where that yo-yo needs to land on the string. The best thing to do is guide it on the string. Make it more of a technique rather than a physical treatment. So we talked about this, but when you throw the yo-yo out, as this string is swinging towards you, you run your finger along, but you don't want to press too hard, because if you press too hard on it, it does this, whereas it comes around way too fast because you're putting force into it. So you're not putting force, it's more like stroking a cat. I don't know what kind of things you watch, but say, you know salad fingers? Where it goes, oh, Rust, so nice. That kind of thing. So it's that kind of feeling where you're literally just stroking the string. You're barely putting any pressure on the string, but you're like stroking it and guiding along. And what that does is, let me try and show you. So as you're running the finger along the string, it makes it so that you are not veering off like this or like this, because if you were to do that, then obviously the trapeze won't land, but you're running it straight down, so your yo-yo kind of has nowhere to go but along that straight line. So it's the exact same thing. So you're running your finger along the string. I would recommend start with all the way from your throw hand finger all the way along on until you feel the yo-yo hit the string and you stop. Because if you carry on going, that yo-yo is going to hit your finger and it will die. The important thing is really just to kind of control the amount of pressure that you put on. You might at first put a bit too much pressure and it does that. Or you might not put enough and it does this, where it's kind of like missing the string, or not really, you're not actually achieving anything. You might as well be hopping it on. And then the right amount of pressure is like stroking a dog or a cat. Yeah, so you don't want to put too much pressure, but just enough pressure to apply force onto the string. So you can probably see the string bending like this. If it's whipping the yo-yo around, that's too much. Yeah, you kind of want this kind of feeling. So run your finger along the string onto this trapeze. And the idea you want to get is if a spectator or someone else who doesn't know anything about yo-yo, or even people who know about yo-yo, is looking at you, it should look like you're trying to land it with a hop. Oops. You're trying to land it with a hop, because what's happening is you're only touching it right at the end, but it's the still same principle applies. You're only rubbing the string a very short distance because you've got that much accurate. But at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. You're just not running it all the way. So work on removing that distance. So first work on having a consistent trapeze where you think 100 out of 100, windy day or not, I'm going to be able to land it back onto the string. That's where you kind of want to be, where it's good to practice Eli hops. So I like to practice Eli hops with kids out in the park, because firstly I don't have to worry about the ceiling and it could be windy, but wind doesn't matter. Wind's going to blow it off the string, but as you're guiding it back on, it forces the yo-yo back onto the string like a rail. So that's where you really want to get to. Let me just check my string tension. So you want to try and have as minimal contact as possible. So maybe start from about this way down. Okay, that's getting good. Start from about halfway down. Oh, I missed. Okay, go up a bit more again. Okay, that's good. Go back to halfway down. Okay. And the great thing about this is you can bounce back and forth like this and get loads of trapeze practice in one throw. When you get to a point where your hand stays kind of parallel to your throw hand, and then you're onto the trapeze like this, so you're not running along the string, you are, but you're only running it once it gets to the level you want it to be. That's a great place to be at this point. So once you get to there, what I would like you to do is keep your middle finger out. So how you pop up the yo-yo is your hands are moving away from each other, and what you'll notice is the yo-yo is sitting on it like this with a weight. There's a little bit of slack, but it doesn't look like a slack because the weight is pressing down on it. But what you want to do is you pull your hand apart, and it makes it taut, and anything on it's got like a bit of a trampoline effect. So it was going to jump the yo-yo off like that, if you can imagine. And this is what you use for any of the hop tricks. So that's where you want to practice next, is to kind of pull the hand apart a little bit. And if you have your middle finger out, so this is normal trapeze, if you have your middle finger out as well, you can pull, and then it's got something to catch. So at first, maybe you might want to just practice going on to the hop off bit, like this. Just up to here, and then you can maybe go back into the trapeze, and then hop off, and catch it with your middle finger. Back onto the trapeze, hop off. I'm quite a big advocate in doing it step at a time, because if you can't do the first bit, trying to do it all together in one go. I get a lot of people asking me questions like, I just picked up a yo-yo, and I'm learning brain twister, and the thing is, sorry, I said brain twister, didn't I? Brain twister, and I can only get 5 loops, and my yo-yo dies a spin. So my question is, I didn't get you. Why don't you do one thing, go up to a bind, and if you can do it, then next time try to do 2 spins or 3 spins, go to a bind, and then build it up from there. Because if you can't do 3, there's obviously no way you're going to do 5. So same thing, trapeze off, trapeze off, or at this particular stage, on here, off, catch, let it swing back up, on here, off, let it swing back up, on here, off. And that, I think, is going to be absolutely fantastic if you can get that far. If you do, then the next bit is on here, off, and then you want to kind of bring it back. So if you have if you had no finger there, it will just pop out like this. But if you have your pointer finger to catch, if all you're doing is pulling at this, you're pulling with your throw hand, and that, with the weight of the yo-yo, is going to give you enough momentum. So just a little tug, and then having the finger in the way is going to get it back up. And then now this is a great practice because you're practicing both the trapeze and the undermount initial step at the same time. So that's trapeze. Oh, did I not?